Hi everybody, welcome to my kitchen. My name is Joe Borio and we are going to have some fun cooking Italian with Joe today. And what I want to share with you today is a recipe on pasta, on orecchiette. So I love orecchiette. Orecchiette is a pasta shaped like little saucers, almost like a little cup. And it actually means ear. My grandmother used to call them little pig ears, and I used to help my grandmother make them years ago. So we laid out some things here for you today to kind of get a jump on it, so we weren't wasting any time. We want to do some Italian cooking, some traditional cooking. My grandmother, who I grew up with, Caroline, who is the kindest Italian woman you've ever met, Nana, she made miracles in her kitchen. And she used to have this piece of plywood with a rolling pin. I mean, that's it. And so we've progressed over the years. So I know it's traditional pasta making, but I'm going to use a food processor to make it. And my attitude is, if my grandmother had a food processor, she would have used that rather than making the well. But that's my opinion. So whether you want to use a food processor or whether you want to knead it, they're totally fine. You can start with a well. So we need a food processor. We need some flour. We're going to need some eggs. We're going to need some salt, some olive oil. And I got a little bit of a jump here just to save us some time. But generally what you want to do is some essentially some all-purpose flour. I like to use organic flour. I like to use an unbleached, non-enriched flour. So I want something that is just as natural as I possibly can. I don't want any chemical. I don't want any chemical treatment and so forth. And it gives a much nicer consistency to your pasta. So we're going to make 2 batches. So what I did here is I did about 4 cups, or I will have about 4 cups of flour. That being said, you're going to need anywhere from 4 to possibly 8 eggs, depending on the size of the egg. I always like to add some olive oil, and we're going to add some salt. So I always like to add the dry ingredients first. So that's kind of what we're going to start with. You're going to need some kind of a drying rack, which I have here. We got a pan ready to go with some water, which we'll use in a little bit. Obviously a dish to put the orecchiette in. Little type of strainer to pull it out. You'll notice we've got some good Frank Sinatra music in the background, because in my opinion you can't really hit any good food without any good Frank Sinatra music. So that being said, we're going to start with some flour base. So I'm going to add another cup. I started with 3 cups. I'm going to add 4 cups of flour. And rough measurement, doesn't have to be exact. My grandmother never measured anything, so I mean, she used to put everything in a bowl. So we're going to hit 4 cups of flour. And then I like to put the salt, or essentially the dry ingredients, all in at once. So I'm going to put the salt in here, maybe about 2.5 to 3 pinches of salt. Okay, and then we're going to hit that in the food processor. And normally I wouldn't even put it in the bowl here, but just for measuring purposes, I wanted you guys to see what I was doing exactly. So, and then sometimes you talk about sifting flour. And a simple way to do it here, rather than having to sift it to kind of lighten it up, make sure it doesn't have any clumps, you can just hit it right in the food processor, let it run 30-40 seconds, and that'll add a little air, make sure there's no clumps within the flour. Next thing we need is some eggs. So what I did is I got a few eggs going. A lot of times I'll watch people and they cook and they'll put the egg in without mixing it. I'm not a big fan of that. I like to mix it all up first, and then get everything ready to go. And what it does is it just make sure you don't get any clumps or non-mixed part of your egg in there. So essentially what you're looking for in the dough mixture is you're looking for it to be just on the side of tacky. You don't want to have it to where it's anything more than tacky. And when you make a good dough, the dough itself is your pasta. It should be able to stand on its own. It should have a really good flavor. So now we're putting I'm going to use I use a little bit more than a lot of recipes call for. So I'm going to use about a 1/4 cup of olive oil. Again, I'm going to mix all that in here. I've seen some recipes, they'll do more of an egg mixture. I've seen some with, they'll use a lot of water. I don't like to do that. And my grandmother didn't either. So what she did is flour, salt, eggs, and olive oil. And you get that mixture going. Now that's all mixed up. So now you know you've got a good mixer. We might be adding some more. And then we're going to turn this food processor on. In fact, what I'm going to do this way, just to get it started, is I'm going to mix some of that ahead. So I'll mix some in there. And you're going to see it. It's going to start to catch it immediately, right? And then I'm going to mix a little bit more in there. I made some orecchiette last week, and you can flavor the orecchiette. You can flavor any pasta, so you can put a garlic paste. I mean, you can do anything you want. You've seen some spinach pasta, tomato pastas. Those are all great. You can also do, we did truffle oil, so you can put truffle oil in the pasta itself. So we've got this mix in. Now I did 2 batches, so in this case you're going to do about 4 cups and change of flour, and then typically for each 2 cups you're going to want 4 eggs. So in this case you're going to want about an 8 egg mixture. So that's where we're working right now. So we're doing that second batch. But what'll happen is when you knead a dough, you're trying to create strands of gluten, or what they'll call protein, within the dough, and that allows the dough. Yeah, that's perfect. See how it starts to get stretchy? Perfect. Keep it in one place. So what I'm going to do now, you want to knead it, so what I want to do is, I got a lot of dough here, so I'm going to just put a little bit of flour on it. And I'll tell you, that is perfect right there. I think the consistency is beautiful. And that's going to give you a nice ball of dough to work with. And what you'll do is you'll work it just a little bit more, just to make it all perfect consistency from coming out of the food processor. And it'll be just a little bit, almost when you break the skin, you see how it gets a little tacky, right? And that's basically what you want. And that means there's enough, if you will, moisture or tack within it for it to stick together. And then that'll allow it to work really well. And I can feel it really, you almost want it like gooey, almost like a Play-Doh. But a little bit, and it'll get stringy. So those strands in there allow it to get rubbery. See how it starts to come back? Now, once you've built up the dough, and it's got those strands of gluten in there, and it's very rubbery, you want to let it rest, because as you keep working any dough, it'll actually build up more and more strands of protein, and then it gets harder to work. So you want to, as you've heard people say, let the dough rest. You let the dough rest. The concern you have anytime you let dough rest is you don't want it to get dry, because it'll start to dry out, because you got flour, essentially flour and water from the egg. So what I do is I'll get a ball of dough. Oh, that smells good too. That's a good smelling dough. It'll have a nice, almost like a nutty flavor to it. So I'm going to put it right in there. I'm going to give it a splash, just a splash of olive oil to go over the top of it. And I just cover the whole dough with a little olive oil. And then I take a paper towel. Let me try that again. And just a splash of water on it. And what it does is it just keeps the dough moist. And you don't want any edges of the dough to dry up. And that's not my idea, that's my grandmother's idea. So that's how I do it. All right, so we're going to let it rest maybe about 15 or 20 minutes. And what I'll do is, through the magic of television here, we'll cut that out. And then when I come back with you, I'll show you how to actually cut the dough into orecchiette, how to make them, how to dry them, and then we'll move forward on cooking. Okay guys, we're back. We've taken about an hour. We've had about 2.5 bottles of wine, so my cheeks are going to look a little redder. No, I'm just kidding. You don't know what I've been doing, do you? But in any case, without trying to make a mess here, see how nice and soft the dough is? You let it rest, and what happens is it just gets more what they say relaxed. And as the dough gets relaxed, it's easier to work with. It's more fun to work with. It's easier. And because what we're going to do is we're going to make these little ears, and it's work. You know, I can remember sitting there, like I said, with my grandmother. We'd sit there with our thumbs for a half hour, and that's what we're going to do here. You got to cut them and make them. And my grandmother would usually make me hot chocolate or some type of fried dough or something else to go with that. So it was always a lot of fun to be with my grandmother. So So what we're going to do here is now remember I got two, and I'm flipping flour all over, but I'm kind of messy as a cook, so black was probably the wrong shirt to wear here when I'm doing flour. But this is two mixtures, if you will, portions of pasta. So we're gonna be here for a while. So what you're gonna do is cut it in half. That's a baker's knife, right? You're gonna cut it approximately in half, okay? And then you're gonna put one side off, but then the other concern is you don't want that side to dry off, so like we talked about. So you're always gonna want to keep it wrapped, and you're always gonna want to keep something moist over it, just so that edge doesn't get wet. Now we're gonna cut this other part as well. So and don't worry about the water and such, because the flour. I always put as you see, the flour over it. So okay, so there is our remaining portion of dough that's going to be resting, if you will. And then this is going to be our first section of orecchiette. It's kind of fun to work with. So it's always fun to do this with the kids. The kids will last about 5 minutes, and then they're done at this point. So, which is probably the way I was with my grandmother. So now this dough can be used, same thing you'd use for pasta, any type of pasta. If you want to make cavatelli, you can also make pasta through the pasta machine. Lately I've been using the guitar, which is basically 2 racks of wood with strings, sharp strings that go through it. And what they'll do is, see how nice and stringy that is? And then you push your pasta through it. And I'll tell you what's great, which I know unfortunately you can't smell at home right now, is this smell. It has such a beautiful pasta. Do I have flour all over my nose? Camera woman. It has such a beautiful smell. And that's what people don't realize. Pasta, in and of itself, should stand up on its own. And if you're up in the northern region of Italy, you'll find that the pasta doughs, they tend to be a little bit harder in flavor. And if you go southern Italy, especially on the east, they tend to use a lot more olive oil in their dough, because that's where olive oil is highest. That's where they grow it. Like near Bari, for example, the olive trees came from Greece, so they would have come from Greece to Bari. That's why you find the region of Puglia, south of Rome, east of Italy. That's where they have the highest number of olive trees. That's why they have all the olive trees there, which is awesome. So what we're going to do here is roll this out. And this is where the fun comes. So you want to, if you can't get a nice round, I'm not rolling good, so I'm going to do it this way here. No, getting flour all over the place. So now we're going to make the ears, the orecchiette ears. And what's nice about the shape of an orecchiette is it holds the sauce. It's going to hold the sauce, right? So what you're going to do now is you're going to make little slices, okay? So if you look here, you're going to see this is smaller, and then the pasta, my little roll here, gets bigger, right? So I've seen with some of my Italian friends, they'll actually draw a knife across to make the orecchiette. I've seen people do that, which is great. I've seen the cavatelli makers, which kind of go in the pasta makers. But real simple, what you're going to do is you're just going to cut it in all these little dices, right? Now, they're going to want to stick together, right? So what I do is separate them, and then I take some flour, okay, and I actually put it all over them. So my little pieces, my little ears to be, if you will, don't stick together. Look how great that is. My Frank Sinatra music stopped, and that's always sad when Frank's not playing. So, okay, so now we got all our little pieces, right? So you're going to notice if they lay flat, and with all the little flour around, it works perfect, because you don't want it to stick to your counter, right? So real easy. Now you're going to make the ears. So you're just going to take your thumb, or, this is one way to make them. And you're going to take your thumb, and you're going to push down, and then turn it. And it'll make like a little cup. Okay? And that's it. You're just going to turn it, twist it, catch a little bit more. Don't be too worried about, if one's a little bigger than the other. When you put them in your mouth, it really doesn't matter. And you mix some beautiful sauce. Now, what I was saying before is in certain areas of Italy, for example, especially in the, like I said, south of Rome, they put a lot more different flavors, or more prone to put different flavors in their pasta. But in many areas, they put a very little or light sauce. So the sauce that we're accustomed to here in the United States, if I'll use like a ragu or prego or something of that nature, and some of the true Italians out there, they might cringe when I say that, because it's not mama sauce, and I agree with you. But the reality, that type of sauce, that's not really a traditional, known as a traditional sauce throughout most of Italy. Most sauces are very light. So there's your orecchiette. Now what I'm going to do is this is how I do it anyway, okay, and this seems to be really easy, and this is the way my grandmother used to do it. Now what happens is there's your orecchiette pastas, right? And then I put them on a rack, and they're going to dry. And I flip them around a little bit in the dough, or I'm sorry, in the flour, and that way they don't stick to each other. And then you just spread them out, and then what they'll do is they'll dry. So while you're doing the next batch, just make sure they're not sticking with each other. When you're doing the next batch, they're going to dry out. You're going to do a rack, and then you can take these, and then you can plate them, and you don't have to worry about them sticking together because they've dried up a little bit, and they're covered with flour. So here's our next group. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and make a few here over the next 7 to 21 days, and I should tune back in about a month. No, but it'll take about an hour or so to finish these up. So I'll finish these up, and over the next hour I'll get a whole bunch made, and then I'll tune in with you, and we'll show you about cooking and making a nice sauce. We're almost done. We're popping a few more in here. We're going to stir those up. They look great. And they get all cleaned up. Sometimes the kids come in and they go, oh geez, it's got flour all over it, but the flour will wash off in your pasta water. And you just want to go gentle. I got a nice gentle basket. Some people put the oil in there. Oil's not always a good thing to put in the water. It doesn't really prevent it from sticking. Sometimes it'll coat the pasta if it goes in, if it touches the pasta before or as it hits the water, and then it prevents the pasta from absorbing the water. So it's best not to put the oil in there, but you do want to have, because there's starches in there, and that's what makes it sticky. So you do want to have the whatever you're going to put it in when you take it out of the hot water, you want to have oil in that, which we do. So we're going to actually put our pasta right into the simple sauce, in this case, and all this is hardened up. So I'm almost done here. Got a great little pan, we're popping them in. Always good to taste. Remember I said in the earlier portion of the video that the pasta should stand up on its own. It should have really good flavor, and it does. It tastes great. And it's got a really nutty flavor. It's not too salty. And like I said, when you put it in there and the sauce is hot, in this case, not only will the pasta still cook for a few minutes, or moments if you will, but it's going to absorb. You want to almost let it cook in there for a minute, because you want it to absorb the flavor of the sauce. You're going to put some orecchiette on there with your sauce. Wrong spoon actually, but we'll make it work for the TV show. And you wonder why I got a towel around my neck. One is to clean up any mess. Two, just to wipe your finger actually. But hit the plate, and then we take a little cheese. I'm just going to hit a little cheese on there. And that is awesome. And this is when Grandma would say buon appetito. Absolutely awesome. We got a simple sauce which we made in the other video. We got orecchiette, homemade. It just absorbs all those flavors. Absolutely tastes fantastic. Something very simple, easy to do, fun to do with your family. Certainly at home at any time. This has been Cooking Italian with Joe. Remember, always great to cook with your family. Spend Sunday sitting around the table. Shut those cell phones off. Shut those computers off. Shut those electronic games off. And enjoy time with your loved ones. That's what it's all about. Ciao. I'll talk to you on our next video. Thanks.